morning. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for Calaveras County. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Item 1 is closed session agenda pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, Personnel Matter, conference with labor negotiator Judy Hawkins, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding Deputy Sheriff's Association, Sheriff's Management Unit, Service Employees International Union, and Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association negotiations.
This is a closed session agendized item. Is there any public comment? Madam Clerk.
Item 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Christopher Wilson versus County of Calaveras, Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, case number CCVC 362477.
Once again, any public comment on this closed session agendized item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2.
Any public comment on this closed item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
And item 4, public employee appointment or employment, Ag Commissioner, pursuant to Government Code 54957.
Public comment on this closed item, agendized item for closed session? Seeing none, Board will revert to closed session. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for Calaveras County for this Tuesday. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Clerk.
Report of closed session. Item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, Personnel Matter, conference with labor negotiator Judy Hawkins, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, regarding Deputy Sheriff's Association, Sheriff's Management Unit, Service Employees International Union, and Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association negotiations. No reportable action was taken. Item 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Christopher Wilson versus County of Calaveras, Workers' Compensation Appeal Board, case number CCVC 362477. No reportable action was taken. Item 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, one case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. The board will be breaking at 11:30 to 1:30 to reconvene to closed session through lunch. Item 4, public employee appointment or employment, Ag Commissioner, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, on a motion by Supervisor Garamendi and a second by Supervisor Oliveira. The board members present unanimously voted to approve the reappointment of Kevin Wright as Ag Commissioner. Staff was directed to bring a resolution forward at the next board meeting to memorialize the appointment. Supervisor Toffanelli was absent.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. This time, any announcements by board members or staff? Madam Clerk.
So I have two things. The first is the item regarding the zoning amendment for Jed Richardson that was tabled from the July 25th, 2017 meeting will be continued to a future meeting date to allow for a full board to be present. The second item is to let you know that we have a new timer in the boardroom so that you will know what to be aware of. Here's how it works. The unit on the podium will reflect the amount of time you will have to speak. When your time starts, the green light on the top of the unit will light up. When you have 30 seconds remaining to speak, the yellow light will illuminate, and when your time is completed, the red light will blink and a beep will be heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, I realize it's going to take a little time getting used to it, but I think this system will help us get our points across during our public comments period and better understanding for the members of the board and staff. With that said, Madam Clerk.
Recognition and acknowledgements. Item 5 is from the Board of Supervisors to adopt a proclamation recognizing Kathy Northington's 40 years of service as an educator in Calaveras County.
Supervisor Mills.
Yes, this proclamation is recognizing Kathy Northington's 40 years of service as an educator in Calaveras County. Proclamation reads, whereas Kathy attended school in Wallace and Valley Springs Elementary Schools, graduated from Calaveras High School in 1969, and attended California State University, Sacramento, where she received her bachelor's degree in child development and her teaching credentials. And whereas Kathy returned to Calaveras County as a teacher at Railroad Flat, Valley Springs, and Copperopolis Elementary Schools from 1977 to 1987. While teaching, she continued her education and received her master's degree in school administration from the University of San Francisco in 1985. Whereas in 1990, Kathy served as principal at McCollum Hill Elementary for 1 year, and then moved to Valley Springs Elementary, where she served as principal for 9 years. And whereas in 2000, she was named Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction at the Calaveras Office of Education, and later added oversight of the county's special education programs to her responsibilities. Whereas in 2008, she was hired as Superintendent of Mark Twain Union Elementary School District. And whereas Kathy was elected as the County Superintendent of Schools for Calaveras County in June 2010, taking office in January of 2011, Kathy has had the unique experience of being a student, a parent, teacher, and administrator, all in Calaveras County. Whereas Kathy will retire on August 31st, 2017, having given 40 years of service as an educator in Calaveras County. Chair, we ask for a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Garamendi.
I'll second that.
Second by Supervisor Clapp. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board and call the question for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no.
Therefore,
Oh,
go ahead. My bad.
Hearing none, motion carries 4-0, one absent.
Thank you, Chair. Therefore, be it proclaimed, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors would like to extend their congratulations to Kathy Northington, extend their best wishes for her future endeavors, and express their appreciation for her dedication to the county and its residents, passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras, State of California, this 8th day of August, 2017. Would you like to come up?
Kathy, would you like to say something? Kathy, can I ask you to use the microphone?
Yeah, I've got that teacher voice. Thank you for this recognition. I really appreciate it. And It's been a long ride, but it's been a fast ride. And so now I have to figure out, I've been, averaging a speed on the treadmill about 150 miles an hour for 40 years, and now I have to figure out what it's going to be like when that treadmill all of a sudden stops and what I'm going to reinvent myself into. But Calaveras has afforded me great opportunities, and I have really enjoyed my time working in education, and I know that you are going to continue to support education and work with education, and I know education is going to continue to grow and be hopefully in everybody's radar as far as something that we all focus on for the kids of the future. My mantra has always been what's best for kids, and so that's what we have to keep for the future. So thank you again for this recognition. Really cheered me up. I found out about this last night quite by accident, and my team had to bring me here tonight. This morning they weren't sure I would get here, so they made sure I'm here. So thank you very much. It's an honor.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, now we'll go into public comment. Madam Clerk.
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I want to make sure that we're still aware of our admonishments regarding respect to speakers, to the board, and to the people in our chambers here. And I'm going to be very tight on one little rule right now, and that's going to be speak into the microphone. I noticed during my absence that I reviewed tapes, and it is a necessity that we speak into the microphones. So,
I think it's a try to do timer first.
oh yes.
You're going to be able to guinea pig the timer for us.
Good morning, Board. I'm Bonnie Newman from Double Springs, chronic taxpayer. I have something to say about this. I'd like to take a baseball bat to it. That and that other thing that we had up here. I also resent the 3-minute limitation that we have. Even when there's only 2 speakers, we're still limited to 3 minutes. I think you're trying to suppress the public speaking. That's what I have to think. Anyway, last meeting we had a presentation by the public authority, and there was some really important information that was left out. The reason your paper's folded is because this was the program for 30 years. And suddenly, if you unfold the paper, all these other things appeared, which are, in fact, a sucking away of resources for services. The way the public authority was created was, in the old days, these guys on the bottom, the union, looked at this program as a way to get money. Now, you know, the county didn't want to negotiate with home care workers, and the state didn't want to negotiate with home care workers, so they set up this, like, paper organization of the public authority, which meant they could start organizing, get a contract, and milking members for money. The public authority was created back in the 90s, and there was like a 10-year time frame where counties could get on board, and the more progressive counties like San Francisco and San Mateo and Contra Costa, they all jumped on right at first. And of course, when the train came around the bend, Calaveras was on the caboose. We were one of the last counties to create a public authority. And before the Public Authority was created, there had to be an IHSS advisory committee created. So those two entities were left out of that presentation. That the idea for the Public Authority came from the unions, and before the public authorities were created, the IHSS committees were created. Oh God, time is at an essence. I just wonder how many people are going to talk today and how many people could get their message across in 5 minutes rather than 3 minutes. This will be continued. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Good morning. My name is Marlene Bronner. I'm from Central Sierra Child Support Agency, and the reason I am here today is because August is Child Support Awareness Month, and I'd like to provide the board with information about what we are and what we do. The Child Support Program began in 1970 to recoup funds expended for families on public assistance. The program was maintained by the Office of the District Attorney in each county until the late 1990s. The program transitioned to child support departments in each county under the umbrella of the State Department of Child Support Services, with a few exceptions. We are an exception. Central Sierra Child Support Agency is one of 7 regional programs and the only one under a joint powers authority. We were created in 2003 and include 4 counties: Alpine, Amador, Calaveras, and Tuolumne. 75% of the families now receiving services through the child support offices are not on public assistance. This makes the services provided to families critical to the financial well-being of those families where both parents aren't in the home of the children. Board members for the JPA are members of the local boards of supervisors from each of the 4 counties, and the current members from Calaveras County are Michael Oliveira and Gary Toffanelli. Central Sierra Child Support Agency currently has a caseload of 5,443 and serves 3,217 children and their families. In Calaveras County, the program currently has a caseload of 1,593 and serves 974 children. Our program has been very successful. We distributed $120,324, of which $3,041,000 was distributed to families in Calaveras County. Our program has been very successful in serving the families in our counties. We've received recognition both statewide and regionally, having performed among the top 10 programs in California for the past 11 years. Last year we were 5th. Central Sierra Child Support Agency offers many services for families, and I'll distribute a flyer after I'm done speaking. Our services include establishing paternity, establishing a court order for child and medical support when parties do not have a court order of their own, enforcing child support orders, including current child support, spousal support, any arrearages that have accrued, health insurance coverage for dependents, and locating the non-custodial and custodial party for establishment and enforcement. Cases may be opened by an online application or by contacting any of our local child support agencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Bill Wilson, District 1. Came to light in an NPR interview with Rebecca Callan that there's been misappropriation of funds, of those registration fees that registered cannabis growers. One of the largest contributors to that misappropriation of funds might be the Sheriff's Department. I wonder why the background checks haven't been done. I wonder why the applications are not complete. I wonder why people aren't being approved. I think maybe with the sheriff that says he does not think commercial cannabis should be allowed in Calaveras County, and then is shown to be misappropriating those funds from those fees, should be called into question, gentlemen, somehow, some way. I don't know if he got bad advice. I don't know if he got bad legal counsel. But misappropriation of funds falls under the charge of malfeasance by a county official, an elected county official. This one happened to be appointed, not elected. I hope when he does run for office, things like this might come up in his election and be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Benjamin Stopper, District 5. I'm going to have to partially disagree with Bill Wilson's comment And excuse me, I'm going to be a little bit dramatic here. What's that? Do you hear that? Is that something coming down the tracks? Is it the state auditor controller's office coming in for a department by department audit of the county? Let's go to the Calaveras auditor says sheriffs misspent cannabis funds. With this headline coming out on Cap Radio, we must ask ourselves a question. What is it that burdens the auditor controller to throw the sheriff underneath the bus? This is out of order. Why didn't she come to the Board of Supervisors first with this? Why wasn't it heard here before it went to the media as such? With this headline coming out, Cap Radio, we must ask ourselves a question. What is it that burns the auditor controller to throw the sheriff under the bus? Is it presenting misdirection to cover one's own ass? Is it anger over a past instance where a family member had a run-in with law enforcement? I don't know. But I do know the title Auditor Controller presents the duties of this office as vetting these types of purchases such as misappropriation of funds. How many departmental audits have been presented before the board from the Auditor Controller? Is this the duty of her office? I know when the state comes in, they will be doing their job, doing a department by department audit. And sadly, we must take into consideration that the urgency ordinance regulation fees are a very small part of the whole reason for a state audit. Assessed tax money will be under scrutiny, and allocation of money from bonds and other voter initiatives will be under scrutiny. Let's all hope that the Auditor Controller has been doing her job at Calaveras County for their constituency, vetting expenditures and keeping the county on the straight and narrow. Paperwork trails, gentlemen, could be the burden upon us taxpayers for years to come.
Thank you.
Good morning. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I don't have anything to complain about this morning, but I do have something to announce, and this is our 9th annual Taxpayers Barbecue. This will be held at the Pickle Patch this Thursday, a couple of days away, between 5 and 8 p.m. And we have an excellent lineup. These are always interesting because you not only have a chance to have fun, enjoyable environment with good people, but also learn a lot about what's happening in the county. And we have a forum that'll be going on. Our main speaker is John Coppell, who's president of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, and also he's leading the fight on the illegal fire tax, and he's not giving up. He's going to continue with that. We got Supervisor Michael Oliveira, who will be also speaking, and he'll be presenting an award for excellence in public service to Ed Lark, manager of our Calaveras Public Access TV. It's a long time coming. He's been doing an incredible job with that service. And then we'll have a report from Candace Kesey of the Friends of Calaveras Sheriff's Office, and she'll be reporting our activity. Candace is a previous recipient of the CCTA Excellent Public Service Award. And then the plot gets thicker. We're going to have a forum which will be moderated by Vicki Renicky, and on the forum we'll have Peter Maurer, our planning director, Tim Lutz, CAO, Leslie Davis, assessor, and Rick DiBasilio, sheriff. And we're going to have a couple extra exciting things happening. Now, normally the reservations are cut off on the 5th, and however, we do have a few seats available, and if someone would like to attend, just give me a call at 785-1491. That's 785-1491. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Mike Falvey, longtime resident, District 2, Mountain Ranch. I was on a road trip, my wife and I, and missed all the excitement in my neighborhood. The busts a week ago, 10 days ago, whenever it was. A quarter mile away from me was 4,573 plants to the east. About a half a mile to the west of me was 700 and some odd plants, 5 arrests, multiple weapons. That was to the west of me. About 2 months before that, right next door to me was 300 plants eradicated. All of them were illegal. Now, the 4,500 plant bust was one that I specifically addressed our sheriff face-to-face with. Last year, this gentleman harvested his 4,500 plants, processed them in the illegal grow, processed them in the eye of the public, and when I addressed Sheriff DiBasilio about it, he said, I can't do anything about it, I don't have the resources. He told me directly, this isn't something I heard. This year, he had the resources. This isn't some quarter-acre lot in a subdivision in Angels Camp or Rancho Calaveras. This is in District 2. That is where the majority of this industry is based. I don't think we can base the desires of our constituents who are already under the guidelines of a ban, say for instance in Angels Camp. We shouldn't base our votes on a ban based on what necessarily the majority of our constituents wish for. We need to consider the overall good of the county. My point is, last year, Sheriff Rick told me, I can't do it, I don't have resources. This year, he did it. You know why? He had resources. Where did those resources come from? I'm not familiar with the numbers, but what I understand is about $9 million was paid in taxes. Don't shake your head, sir. That's what I read. Please. The public can't do that. Why should the board be able to do that? This is what we're dealing with. Attitudes like that. So I'll stop. I have my 27 seconds, but being a red-blooded Irishman, why should you be able to sit there and shake your head while these folks can't? Give them enforcement tactics. Don't be rude. Don't smirk at me either.
Gentlemen, please, thank you.
Bill McManus, Band Committee. I'd like to reference the busts that were made earlier this week and compliment all of the agencies that were involved for the tremendous job they did. I'm glad, as opposed to what happened in Yuba County, that everyone returned from that mission safely, or at least we think so. I just want to read the mission statement from the Environmental Health Department. The purpose and goal of the Environmental Health Department is to protect public health, safety, and the environment. This may best be described in applied preventive medicine, i.e. serving to avert occurrences in which may have deleterious health effects on the public. Underline and emphasis added, staff implement state and locally mandated programs designed to protect the public from health and safety hazards. Now, as we read the statistics from Operation Terminus, some of it was kind of frightening. Assault weapons with serial numbers removed, opium plants, body armor, huge quantities of marijuana. I think the most important effect or fact that came out of that was that there are 157 environmental citations issued in approximately 30 grows. 30 grows represents about 2% of the grows in Calaveras County. If you were to extrapolate that number, we would have near 7,000 environmental citations or violations in the county. To that end, we are asking that the Board of Supervisors, hopefully a supervisor or two will pick it up, and create a registry of environmental incidents and citations. This would be a central repository for all of this information so that citizens could find out what's going on in their neighborhoods and in the county. Right now, if you want to get that information, you have to travel between multiple agencies because none of that data resides in one place unless it might be in the DA's office where prosecution will be taking place, and in which case maybe that information is not necessarily available. We've listed 10 items that we'd like to see in this registry. I probably don't have time to get through them all, but you can read them at your leisure. The most important ones are item 5 and item 6, and that would be a list of chemicals and migration profiles of the chemicals found on each site so that neighbors will know what is on their neighbor's property that may affect them. The other one is based on mitigation or migration profiles, a list of potential properties that could be affected either through airborne, water, rain, whatever. How's that contamination going to move around, and who might be affected by the various types of chemicals that are out there? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Good morning. Martin Luther King, in his I Have a Dream speech, hoped for all God's children to acknowledge each other as such. At Guantanamo Bay after 9/11, we found out one of the ways they intend to destroy us and take over is by turning us against each other. Turning us against each other because of our shade of color, our political party, our creeds, the choice of our occupations such as police work, and whatever else stand we may take. It remains for us to decide if we want to take the bait. Meantime, does it make sense for us to put a strong, mind-altering drug as marijuana is in an elevated place when we all know that the harm that prescriptive drugs, cigarettes, and tobacco and alcohol have proved to be so harmful to the collective health of our nation? By making it possible for anyone to grow, dispense, transport, make foodstuffs or derivatives of, it is drugging our best people. We need everyone sober because it is a sober world that we live in. There is much to do to further stress the social system, the medical system, the legal infrastructure with lax laws on pot seems insane to me. By making any concessions, and that would include 2 dispensaries, we are leaving a mouse hole for them to squeeze in and take over. In Texas, a young mother stopped her car in the driveway. She encouraged one of her babies to get out of the car, and when she wouldn't obey the mother, left them both there. She smoked some pot and took a 2 or 3 hour nap. When she went back to the babies, they were almost dead. And after 9/11 got there, they did die. There are over 94 such cases in Colorado of caregiver-caused deaths related to marijuana. Commercial cultivation is a cult in which we are willing to make human sacrifices through death or deformities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board. Beth Whitkey, D2. Where to start? Let's see. The savings from Medicaid alone, because of medical cannabis, are in the billions of dollars. Prescription drugs, the necessity for prescription drugs drop tremendously when people have access to safe, legal medical cannabis. There are countless incidences of parental neglect. I'm sure, I don't have numbers in front of me, but I'm sure that we will find that the opiate crisis is causing far more fatal outcomes than cannabis does. We need to remember that the cannabis is not all psychoactive, that cannabidiol helps children with seizures. It does not get people stoned. It is not true that our best and brightest are over-medicated with cannabis, or that this causes harm in the community. I would like to point to some of our best artists, culture makers around the world who have long advocated for legalization. Some of our best art, some of our best music, some of our best poetry, all come from people that have used cannabis at one time or are regular users. So I'm not buying it that we are sacrificing our children on the altar of medical cannabis. Our children are dying in droves from things like household chemicals. Analgesics, the number one thing that kills kids, are accidental ingesting of Tylenol, over-the-counter medications. Grandmothers in Colorado have accidentally overdosed their children with Tylenol, or their grandchildren. Tragedies happen. It's a terrible thing. But the more we regulate and tax this industry, the better the outcomes will be. I think it's time that we stop arguing about this. I was just in my car listening to Insight talking about all the confusion around where cannabis dollars went. Mr. Falvey said he read that $9 million came in with taxes. I believe the actual figure is $6.9 million, and that $3.7 million came in with fees. So that is $10 million that have come in from cannabis. We can't deny those numbers. So let's sit down, put our heads together, stop fighting, and find a way to get along in this county, and find a way to stop the bad actors from polluting our watershed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Vicki Reinke, Angels Camp. I just wanted to get up here and publicly thank the Sheriff's Department and all the departments that went out to do Operation Terminus. You know, this is what we as citizens expect to see in our county. How it's paid for, we'll have that discussion, but this is what we want to have happen, and perhaps the community will have to do something to help make that a reality for the rest of the marijuana when the ban goes into place. So again, you know, encouraging that you finally get an opportunity to put the ban in place. And you know, it's not about medical marijuana anymore. It's now about recreational marijuana. The state of California has pushed their agenda on all of us who up here did not want it. We never voted for cultivation. Prop 64 was promoted and to say adults could use marijuana over 21 and that we could all grow 6 plants. That's what 64 was promoted as. We all know, if you read everything in the bill, that there was more to it, but the public didn't really vote to say we could just grow it anywhere in California. It's a disaster. I'm reading right now the new law that they just combined the two, the OMWA and the MRSA, and it's absolutely going to be out of control in our state. We saw what happened just here in our little county trying to regulate it. Well, now they're trying to do it by a state, and I don't even know how that's going to happen, but anyway, we don't need to be a part of that experiment. And so again, 6 plants in everyone's resident is quite enough marijuana, and that in itself is going to be a bit of a challenge for our county. So anyway, I want to again say thanks for the Operation Terminus, and I hope that we can continue to work with other agencies to continue to eradicate marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rickey. Ladies and gentlemen, that would complete our 30-minute time period for public comment. We'll resume public comment after our regular agenda. Is there any speakers to give us an indication if there'll be any participation at that time? Any further public comment speakers? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
It depends on what time that is.
That's going to be after the regular agenda, so it's going to be probably in the afternoon, ma'am. Having said that, public comment is now temporarily closed, and we'll open it up one more time after our regular agenda. Before we go on to consent, CAO Lutz, you have an announcement?
Yes, I figured it was helpful while we were doing this tied into public comment to provide an opportunity to introduce the board and the public to two new additions to my staff who started 2 weeks ago and have really hit the ground running. If possible, I'd like Krista and Bonnie, if you would please both stand. Sorry, putting you guys on the spot. So they're both coming into my office as administrative analysts, provide much needed support in first serving the departments and helping to look at budget issues, helping with agenda items, but also based on just the breadth of what they'll be working on, I'm sure there'll be a lot of opportunities for them to be interfacing with the public. So I felt it was beneficial for everyone to get a chance to see their faces, hear their names, and if you're hearing from them, that's why. So very excited to have them on board. Both bring a great breadth of experience, both in the legal profession and also in county government, and I think they really balance out the office to really cover a lot of the key areas that we want to be looking at and really making the structural and administrative improvements across the county that the board desires, that I would like to see. So I'm very excited to have them and welcome, and thank you.
Welcome aboard. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda. The consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Is there any request to pull any consent agenda item from the public?
8 through 11.
8 through 11, is that right, Al?
Right.
Any further public requests to pull an agendized item from the consent agenda? Item 16, please. Item 16. Any further public requests? I'll bring it to the board. Any board member wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Staff? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the balance of the consent agenda items. Moved by Supervisor Clapp.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 4-0 with one absent. Mr. Segala, you pulled 8 through 11. Item 8, please.
I have the same.
Oh, I'm sorry. Madam
If we
Clerk
could take a
needs to read
second.
it.
Item 8 is from Human Resources to adopt a resolution approving changes to and the extension of the Service Employees International Union Local 1021 MOU.
Thank you. I have the same comment on each of the items. Sometime back, the Auditor Controller expressed alarm about the increases in expenditures that the county has committed itself to over the next several years. And one way to cast sunshine on that would be to actually publicly indicate what the increases in salaries are. I understand that each of these items involve agreements between the county and the union regarding compensation for the employees. And it would be good on all of this to get that information to the public, and it might be wise to actually publicize this in the newspaper. On occasion, we find that public employees who are very secure in their job are paid higher wages than comparable workers in the private sector that are dependent upon the marketplace for their continued existence. In other words, when the jobs run out, they lose their job. And yet, it just seems so unfair that there needs to be reform in the system. It might take some time, but first step is sunshine. Let's disclose those salaries. Thank you.
I'm going to make a clarification here. Mr. Segala, you were addressing all four of the items that you selected with that one presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Council, we need to vote individually on each item, correct? Okay. Having that in mind, Ms. Hawkins?
Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Director. I do agree that we do need to make sure that the information is out there for everybody to see what the union and the county is possibly negotiating on. I think that's something when we go back to the negotiating table, I'll work with the admin office and looking at maybe on our website, we post what each county or what each side, the county and the union, has on the table. So we just have facts posted out there for everybody to see. As far as our wages go, our wages are on the county website for everybody to see. So all steps are posted on our classifications. So our wages are out there.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
I also wanted to pull these items with negotiating with SEIU and coming to an agreement for the extension of the MOU, and this is just an extension. We will be back to the negotiating table in October. With the effective date of the increase in healthcare contribution, I did not put the correct effective date on the resolution, and I would like to correct that now. I do have the corrected resolution for the board and the corrected resolution for the members of the public. And so instead of an effective date of August 19th, I would like to change the effective date to August 5th.
Okay. Notation correct. Any further, Ms. Hawkins?
That's all I have on this item.
Okay. Public comment. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to address public comment on each individual item. So keep that in mind. If you want to make one that pertains to all of them, please don't stand up on the remaining three. Trying to save some time here, folks.
Okay. One is all to me, but per the board's thing. I assume these four items listed are the 5% medical increase in a paid holiday. I think with cannabis dollars at $10 million, another $7-8 million due in December, if we still continue regulation, we could kick in maybe, I don't know, somewhere where the rest of the counties are, instead of being at the bottom of the list, maybe hit the middle and give these people actual raises in money, monetary compensation for the work they do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I had a question about extending the contract. Now, I know when SEIU 2015 became, they changed, they didn't ask their members if they wanted to remain in the union or go with the new regime. I'm just wondering, did these members actually vote on these changes and extensions?
Okay. Ms. Hawkins?
Yes, SEIU worked very hard to take a vote on August 1st, and they did ratify the extension of the contract.
Thank you. Further public comments on all 4 items?
Okay, I do have on the other 3 items, I do have the effective date change also.
Okay.
Do you want me to address them individually or go ahead and give you, or I'm sorry, we are pulling.
They need to be individually.
We need to address them, okay.
We can address them as a group, but we'll be voting on each individual item. So if we need that information for the board, let's do it now. Or is it printed up yet?
Okay, on the next item with the DSA addendum, they did not get the signed addendum back to me, and so I am going to have to bring that item back to the board. They did not get the vote of their membership yet.
Can I interrupt? It really will be cleaner for the permanent record of the meeting if we have the comments specific to each item during that item. So right now, if the comments are done for item number 8, we might want to finish that one up and then move to the next.
Okay, we can bifurcate those. That's not a problem. Is there any further comment on item number 8? Mr. Stopper?
Unless you don't want me to.
Microphone's yours, sir.
Getting out of the recession, moving forward, things in certain areas are getting better. These employees have been waiting a very long time. They did ratify that they're going to wait until October to move forward. Let's keep them in mind. You're making them wait longer. We need to be able to provide salaries and incomes to valuable employees within our county to withhold them so we don't lose them elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment on item number 8? Seeing none, we'll go to item number 9.
No, we need a vote.
Oh, we need a vote individually, that's correct. Then we'll bring it back to the board for discussion, questions. Supervisor Garamendi.
To make a motion to accept number 8 with the revisions.
Motion by Supervisor Garamendi. Second by Supervisor Clapp. No further public comment. Any discussion by the board? Call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent. Madam Clerk.
So, hold on 1 second. Okay. Item 9 is from Human Resources to adopt a resolution approving the addendum to Deputy Sheriff's Association MOU.
Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Director. I will have to withdraw this item. I was unable to obtain all of the signatures, and I will be bringing this item back at the next board meeting.
Okay. Item is withdrawn. Madam Clerk.
Will it be at the next board meeting for sure? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
I have
All
a
right.
meeting this
Then
week.
you need a motion.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to withdraw this item for the request of HR. Ms. Hawkins.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mills, second by Supervisor Garamendi. Further public comment? Seeing none, call for the vote. I'm sorry, Mr. Segala.
On setting salaries, we seem to be going in a direction that's not logical. We're doing it in a negotiated way. However, the people that represent the taxpayers need to have their own plan. And I would recommend a plan that adjusts salaries upward or downward based on the best interests of the county. I'll give you an example. The Sheriff's Department, which is the item you're discussing now, we discovered that we're losing members, deputies, because our salaries are lower than other communities. And so they come here, get trained, and then go someplace where they can earn more money. And it's so illogical that this should happen. And the bargaining process, if it were truly done in a way that would be in the best interest to the taxpayers, this would be taken into consideration. And even the county can recommend an increase in order to retain and keep good people. And of course, the reverse is also true. When we're overpaying people, that on the private sector, they're making less, then that needs to be adjusted too, perhaps over a longer period of time. But we need to work in the best interest of the county. And the best interest of the county is not driving up unnecessary costs because of not using competitive salaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scala.
I know that money is very important, and they do a hard job. But I don't believe that that is the only reason that we are losing deputies. I believe that one of the big reasons that we're losing deputies is like what happened up in Yuba County, losing 2 of their deputies as a result of marijuana operations.
Thank you. Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Hearing none, motion carries 4-0, one absent. Madam Clerk?
Item 10 is from Human Resources to adopt a resolution approving the addendum to Sheriff's Management Unit MOU.
Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Director. The Sheriff's Management Unit, we had come to an agreement and signed off on their extension of their MOU, but they did have a fair and equal clause, which meant that if we agreed to an item that the Sheriff's Management, or a benefit that the Sheriff's Management Unit had put on the table, then we had to meet and confer with them over that item. And so we are giving the Sheriff's Management Unit the same contribution to health care as SCIU. And so that's what this item is. And then I am also requesting the change in date to make it effective on August 5th.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any board discussion?
So moved. I'd like to make a motion to accept this with changes.
Moved by Supervisor Garamendi,
Second.
second by Supervisor Mills. Further public comment? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 4-0, one absent. Madam Clerk?
Item 11 is from Human Resources to adopt a resolution approving the addendum to Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association MOU.
Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Director. Once again, we are bringing forth the addendum for the CCPSEA union contract, changing them or giving them the health care benefit. They also had a fair and equal treatment clause. And once again, I'm asking that we change the effective date to August 5th.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Public comment? Mr. Segala.
Perhaps we should consider a survey, salary survey. And I understand sometimes this is done, but it apparently is not a public document. And this could be helpful in the negotiation. And the surveying should be done, including the private sector where appropriate. I understand with deputies you cannot use the private sector as as an example to compare to, but there are many classifications and jobs in the public sector. We want to attract and keep good people, but we don't need to do more than that. We don't need to pay more than we really need to attract and keep good people. So there should be a salary study done and provided to you before you make decisions about salaries going up or going down.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hawkins, want to respond to that?
And the Human Resources Department has been working with comparable counties, counties of like size, also of like resources, or giving the same type of services. And we've been comparing and taking information from those counties and coming up with a survey, and then also providing that information to the board during closed sessions when we are discussing the proposals from the unions.
Okay.
We continually also, all year long, compare and consistently do comparisons.
Thank you. Public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board discussion or a motion.
Make a motion to accept it with changes.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Garamendi, seconded by Supervisor Mills. No further public comment. We'll bring it back for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 4-0, one absent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
Item 16 is from the Administrative Office to approve budget transfers increasing appropriations in the amount of $279,961 and establishing a fiscal year 17-18 budget necessary for expenditures related to the Blagan Road Bridge Project, FEMA DR-4301. Requires a 4/5 vote of the board.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we enter this item, we're going to be taking a break after this item is over, providing it doesn't go very long. We are going to be taking a lunch break, I want to remind everybody, at 11:30. That'll be a closed session for the board, recommencing here at 1:30. I want to make sure everybody can adjust their schedule to meet that schedule. Mr. Krovitz, we can go ahead and proceed.
Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. I've been in front of you a number of times on this item. Just to indicate, this is a bridge replacement project for not a bridge replacement, it's a crossing replacement up in the Arnold area of a crossing that was washed out and damaged during the floods of 2017. We've been in front of the board on a number of occasions to receive permission and award contracts for a temporary bridge that we thought we were going to purchase. We are now renting in accordance with FEMA approval of the temporary project. And this item, as I understand it, is to appropriate money, establish a budget, fund accounts that expenditures can be paid out of. I'd rather entertain questions on this item if I can answer it. If not, I'm assuming that I can get some support from admin.
Okay. Mr. Krovitz, I'm going to let Mr. McManus speak. He pulled this item. Mr. McManus, if you would address the board, maybe we've answered your question, maybe we haven't.
Bill McManus. At the last meeting when this item came up, there were a lot of different options presented. It started getting a little bit confusing when Public Works was suggesting that, as I remember, renting the bridge for 2 years when in fact it was going to take 3 years to come up with a permanent solution. There was some discussion about whether we should rent the bridge or buy the bridge, and there was some confusion about whether FEMA would contribute on something like that. Then there was kind of another option that was rent for a while and then you could buy it for $100 at the end. And would that $100 take us out of the having the opportunity for FEMA to participate? It seems, and then I thought the whole thing was going to be settled anyway, but here we are back. I guess didn't make it to the he didn't get the budget resolution or whatever to actually do this. And Rebecca Callan had to refuse to make payments because this hasn't been approved yet. Apparently it's going forward. I don't know why it takes so long to do things in this county. We seem impotent on a lot of different things, and yet we look to someone, a young man who just became or retired, if you will, from the Boy Scouts as an Eagle Scout, was able to get a bridge built over an active waterway in Murphy's in about a year. Now, admittedly, the scale of the project, the bridge, is different than what we would have in White Pines. But perhaps the most difficult part of that whole process was getting all the approvals and moving it forward. Actually, putting the bridge there is probably the easiest part of the whole thing. So maybe we should take a hint or follow the example of Ryan Hereford, who seemed to be able to navigate all of the permits and agencies and everything that he had to go through to get the job done. Either that or make him an offer. Maybe we could use him at the county. Thank you.
Not sure how to respond to that, if there was really a question in there or not. Clarification is that this is a project that has been changing constantly since it occurred. And every day there are different criteria to meet or changes to the approval. We need to be able to move it forward for the benefit of the community and the resources that this crossing accesses. And I know it appears confusing. I wished I could change that, but out of my control. And I don't think that we can make a fair comparison to what went on in Murphy's with that pedestrian bridge project versus this project.
Thank you, Mr. Groves. Supervisor Garamendi, you have your light on.
I do, thank you. Mr. Krovitz, you and I told you I was going to ask these questions over email. This is the fourth time we've heard this item. Fourth time I think a third time we voted on this. This one has an increase of another $31,000, so we've gone from $200,000 to $248,000 to $279,000. Can you explain how it went up $30,000 in this last week and a half?
There were two items that covered that $30,000, approximately $5,000 for reimbursement for staff time, and approximately $21,000 or $24,000 for a second year of rental on the bridge, so that it wouldn't have to be done again should the bridge need to be in place. That was at the request of the auditor controller.
The agenda item last time was a 2-year rental, if I remember correctly. So I'm trying to figure out, are we going to see this again, or are we done?
I would like to say that we're not going to see it again, and that we'll be done other than final approval of the contract.
All right. We don't have a Plan B, right? I mean, this thing's getting a little squirrely on us. This is our option.
Plan A.
Plan C. We're on Plan B already.
Okay. There are two projects. There are two identified FEMA projects at this location. One is for a temporary restoration of the crossing. The second one is for permanent repair to the crossing. So those are our plans.
Thank you.
I have a question. Mr. Krovis, I have an understanding of why we got here to an extent. The latest development with the rental of the bridge versus purchase, is that going to be totally funded by FEMA reimbursement?
Current reimbursement is 75% FEMA, approximately 19% Cal OES, and 6.25% with local funds, county funds.
Okay, so we'll have a match fund,
Yes.
and that is for the rental of the bridge?
That would include the rental and the construction to install it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Segala, public comment?
Bill raised some pretty good points. Taxpayers would like to get a bridge a good bridge at the minimum expense. Okay, it seems like the temporary bridge is well engineered, way beyond a lifespan of a year or 2 years. Could be 80 years, maybe longer. And so if you move ahead with buying or renting the bridge with an option to buy for $100, that could really solve the problem if it's not going to harm you getting reimbursed from these other government agencies. If the other agencies who are funding this would not want the temporary bridge to remain for 20 years or however long, then it's a different problem. You'd have to evaluate the cost of going from scratch and doing the engineering and building a bridge, comparing those costs to what the cost would be in the present proposal. Doesn't that seem to make sense? So I think it would be good for the county to have a good bridge at the minimum expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segal.
Oh, here, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Susan Morse, currently Angels Camp. Formerly, we've had a home in Arnold since 1991. And I just wanted to alert this board, which I'm sure you know, that White Pines Lake during the summer is a heavily used lake, from early in the morning through early evening, sometimes evening. It's local residents, but it's also the people that come into the county, the people that rent vacation homes, the people that use their homes as vacation homes. So it's heavily used. We were just there last week. It's not like it was. You have to carry your stuff to go down, your beach stuff. Little kids they're not in the water. We need to all understand that this is now August. Time is of the essence. And this is a heavily used lake. It has been since I've been up here since 1991, every single year. And as I said, even the young teenagers in the afternoon, even just before school's out when it was getting warmer, and when school goes back in, they go after school and swim around the beach. So, as I said, time is of the essence. This is a heavily used beach. The public use it, love it. Hopefully, we hope, and many of us that have lived up there care for it and make sure that it's kept clean. And I just want to just remind you, time is of the essence, and this is a great lake, small lake, community lake. So we need to get across the bridge so there's an easy way to get to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morris.
Bill Wilson, District 1. This isn't a bridge to nowhere, is it? Goes across the river from one point to another. Build the damn bridge.
I wish it was that easy, Mr. Wilson. Believe me.
Used to be just community people would get together and forge the
Microphone.
crossing.
I understand. Have questions. Supervisor Mills.
Jeff, I have questions. Our general fund contribution, now we previously approved from the Teeter Fund a set amount, roughly 200,000. We're now down to 17.
I think that's a result of the approval by FEMA of the project worksheet.
Right, so the question would be, you still have that previous approval by this board for 200,000. Do we need to make some kind of a motion to rescind that 200,000, or, you know, I'm looking at that as we agreed to 200 grand out of Teeter, and now all of a sudden, we're not going to spend it, but it's still sitting there as an approved item.
I would say it would be premature to rescind that at this point, because regardless of whether we get reimbursed for it, we still have the actual cash issue, and so we had used the loan from Teeter to essentially provide cash flow to purchase the bridge while waiting for reimbursement from FEMA. So until that check actually gets here, I would say the board would continue the 200,000 essentially as a line of credit, if you would, to purchase this, make sure that the auditor and the treasurer has sufficient funds to actually pay for it until we get the reimbursement.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that we have an accounting and a settling up here at some point, and we don't hold that 200,000 out there as an approved. becomes a slush fund or whatever for future.
Most assuredly not. I will be watching that.
Okay. And so at what timeline are we looking at this point if things go along without any further hitches?
Assuming that we have no hitch and we have a 4-0 vote on the board today, we will get payment to the bridge manufacturer. It will be trucked out here. That's about a week duration. There is work that needs to be performed by the contractor in preparation for that. The current schedule I have still has it completed before the end of the month.
So Memorial Day is still within realm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have we started the process on the permanent bridge at all?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
We've got, essentially what happens is we report the damaged site, FEMA inspects it, takes data that Public Works puts together, returns to us a damage description. That's approved by the CAO's office. We then get a scope of work for the replacement. We are in between those two steps today.
I just wanted to confirm timelines so everybody's aware what those timelines are. Thank you.
Any further questions of the board, from the board of Mr. Probst? Any further public comment? Mr. Segala, is this your second time on this issue or first?
Well, it's a different question.
Rules are rules, sir. I'm sorry. One time of public comment per item. Sorry about that, Mr. Segala. Seeing no further public comment, we'll bring it back to the board. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Garamendi.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. No further public comment. Sorry, Mr. Segala. I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 4-0, one absent. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Give our staff a chance to breathe a little bit. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We're going to have a change in the agenda item, a quick change due to some requirements of our presenter. Madam Clerk.
We're going to go ahead and skip to item 24 from the Administrative Office to adopt a resolution naming the Calaveras County Arts Council as the official arts agency and state local partner for Calaveras County to receive funds from state or federal grants.
Thank you very much. I'm Kathy Mazzaferro, the Executive Director for the Calaveras County Arts Council. We are honored to be here and receive again your resolution acknowledging us as the official arts council for the County of Calaveras. Our mission statement is to nourish, support, and awaken the arts in all of their ways throughout the county. And having your resolution is essential to receiving the annual state grant from the California Arts Council. The California Arts Council grant basically covers our administrative costs. The generosity and support of the citizens and businesses of Calaveras County cover everything else. Our Ovations Performing Arts Series, our Music in the Parks, our devotion to arts education in all of our schools throughout Calaveras County, as well as our scholarship programs for our young people as they leave to pursue a degree in the in the arts in any fashion. So I just wanted to thank you for your resolution. Is there a paper that I can take with me, or are you going to mail it to me?
We'll get it to you.
That would be great. In fact, if you could email it to me, that'd be even better, because then I can send it on to the state, because we were just at the grant review process yesterday. It was enlightening, to say the least. Actually, believe it or not, you had the easy job today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's going to be a future agendized item, Madam Clerk, for the resolution, or we can...
We just need public comment.
Okay. Public comment?
I just want to say that this county has wonderful artists, and I hope that we can fund the Arts Council to the maximum. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to Madam Clerk. Oh, we need a motion, that's right. I would entertain a motion.
If I might, I want to, before I make a motion, I want to commend Kathy and the entire Arts Council on their work throughout the county. And this is really important. It's important for the benefit of our community members, past, future, and I really appreciate all you do. I think you guys are an important element of well-being here as well as economic development. People
It's
come for the
essential
arts.
for business.
It is.
The arts is good for business, and it's good for kids. Thank you, Jack.
So I would like to, with that, I'd like to make a motion to accept.
I can't comment.
I'm sorry, comment, Mr. Mills, my apologies.
That's quite all right. Kathy, you know, I made a statement before you walked away about being one busy lady. And I know that also applies to the many people that surround you with the Arts Council. It is not just a game of one.
No.
It is a game of many. And you have a Facebook page, and,
Yes.
and I just wanted to acknowledge that. So with that, I would second your motion.
We have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi, seconded by Supervisor Mills. Any further public comment? Before I call for a vote, I'd like to point out that we've received some interesting Army men, Navy men, whatever, to the whole board, compliments of our wonderful presenter there. So we'll keep that on our desks as a reminder. I understand you have a veterans organization presentation on the 30th.
We have, what the Arts Council opted to do this year is we recognized that Calaveras County men and women have honored our country with service for 100 years if you start at World War I. So we've had art projects going on since the first Sunday of April. We're going to have an art show in October entirely devoted to the veterans and in all of their forms that provided service to our country. It's called Salute. Calaveras County Art Council honors 100 years of service. The kickoff event will be a USO-style dance in the 1940s, and it'll be at the town hall here in San Andreas. We're going to hose it down with red, white, and blue. We're going to serve a traditional meat and taters dinner. We're going to have an apple pie baking contest, an all-American dessert auction. We got a big band lined up, so all of us, especially all of us girls, we can gussy up the way they did in the 40s. And gentlemen, if you just want to wear clean jeans, we wouldn't ask any more of you than that. It's just put on your clean jeans and come dance. All of the money raised from the USO dance will be used to provide free art lessons, materials, professional teachers throughout the course of the coming year for local veterans and their families. We'd appreciate it if you'd all be able to help us get the word out that we're now accepting registrations, and it's going to be in all mediums: painting, sketching, mixed medias, you name it. And we want to offer these art lessons to local veterans. And then the art show, as I said, will run all of October with a final salute on Veterans Day and a reception at the gallery honoring our local veterans.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Plan to attend that. Further public comment? It's been moved and seconded. A call for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed indicate by saying no. Motion carries 4-0, 1 absent. Thank you.
So item 17 is from the Administrative Office to receive a report from staff, Cal OES, and local organizations regarding the ongoing Butte fire recovery.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is on the regular agenda now. Mr. Moss.
Good morning, Brian Moss, Administrative Office, and again, once again, this is the opportunity for the board to be updated about Butte fire recovery efforts. There is still a lot going on, and I do know that, as an example, Mr. Knight will be speaking to the insurance recovery issues today, as well as our PIO will be informing the board as to what's going on in that arena as well. So, with that said, again, this is your opportunity to be updated and to ask questions about where we are in the recovery process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Good morning. Mel Knight, Butte Fire Community Liaison. I appreciate the opportunity to update your board and share information with the public today. This is very timely as it's a time of very significant activity in this program. Again, in review, the state and feds have provided about $100 million in debris removal activity, and incumbent in that receipt of those funding services, we've ended up with the county having the obligation to do invoicing where there has been a duplication of benefit. It's a fairly complicated issue at times, but the duplication of benefit in general means that if you receive funding from another source, your insurance company typically, that you and those services were provided by the state and federal government, you must return that portion of your insurance remittance to the state and federal government, and the county is the entity that is the conduit for that activity. I know there was a concern on the part of many, including myself, of the county being in that position. We're all well aware that any attempt to bill or extract funding from disaster victims is inherently problematic. But as problematic and challenging as that is, it's probably best that it is done by the county, because the county is in a much better position to interact, empathize, and be available to the public than if you were to have state and federal agents doing the same activity. So with that, I'm going to give a brief intro of where we are now. Again, in July, we mailed out about 550 letters to property owners that had indicated they did have insurance that was potentially had a duplication of benefit. About 15% of the parties that had insurance had complied with prior requests to give us enough information to figure out what their potential liability might be, and we would be able to assist them. We had received at that point about a little over $1 million in receipts prior to any invoicing. That said, we sent this out and it included letters to many, about 85%, that had not provided adequate information. And by that, some had not provided it because they simply didn't understand the issues. Others had not provided it because their attorneys had told them not to provide it. Others had provided us with some degree of information, but the insurance companies had told us they would not provide us information directly because their relationship was with the insured, not with the county. So this, again, is something that we'd found was a very complex activity, trying to determine on all these policies what people's activity would be. This mailing actually generated a lot of response, as many of you know. And I say that as an understatement. Fortunately, much of it related to then people who had previously sort of allowed this to just move along to actually determine that yes, maybe we'd better talk to the county and get this behind us. And we have resolved quite a few cases since then. We also had a number of folks who interpreted the state cost statements we made as being a bill for their liability. And that unfortunate communication issue we're now addressing and trying to make sure that's clear to all, that indeed no one should have any liability that requires them to pay any out-of-pocket expense. Your liability is strictly limited to the duplication of benefit that your insurance company provides, and any issue that goes beyond what your insurance company provides to you is not your problem. The state and county and federal government will resolve that liability. So it's one that we continue to try to reinforce that message, and we're continuing to do that. We've generated a subsequent letter which we will be mailing out this week, scheduled unless there's some issue brought up by the board, that would go out this week, that would clarify that and reinforce our commitment to have the county in this role of assisting any property owner in determining what, if any, obligation they have for duplication of benefit. Again, it's a complex issue. It's one that does require some interpretation. I've sort of now learned that we're not going to resolve a significant number of these. We will end up at the end of the day, at the end of the project, probably turning over to the state a number that will have notations that will say, of the 854, 350 had no insurance and no liability. Of the remaining, this, and this, paid to the limits of the insurance, this, and this. There was no response, and we'll simply pass this along. The county's not in a role to negotiate, to enforce, or to otherwise do anything other than to try to assist the property owner in getting through this process, doing the invoicing that we're obligated to do, and then moving along. And we expect that to probably last about another month to maybe 6 weeks. If there's some real reason the property owner has to extend this time period, we will try to work with him as best we can. Interestingly enough, with all the challenges we've had, OES contacted me the other day and said, by the way, can we utilize your processes to share with others, because you're one of the more successful programs at this outreach activity. And it's a reminder that this is inherently difficult stuff, and the fact that it's one that generally no jurisdiction, Calaveras, Kern, more into our future, Mariposa, Lake County, no one has done this in the past, so it ends up that we're sort of continuing to just evolve as we're learning our way through the process. And by the way, I do want to thank all those that have been very helpful in trying to do this very difficult communication task. Again, I'm a public health official, environmental health person. I was not an insurance expert. I am not an insurance expert now. Our contractor, Tetra Tech, has been very helpful, but I've also received great support from County Council, from County Administration Office, specifically Tim Lutz and Brian Moss have been very helpful in this activity. Sharon Torrance has been invaluable about reviewing documentation. Since most of the activity is in District 2, I've also gotten some insight and some advice and review by Supervisor Garamendi, and I've tried to keep your board informed as we've moved along. We'll try to move forward on this, and I just want to address a couple of the questions that we get repeatedly. By the way, the earlier mailing and subsequent mailings are involving frequently asked questions that we're trying to continue to share with the public. Some of the things we get is, why was this being billed now? This is nearly 2 years into the process. Well, we only received the state final cost about 6 weeks ago, and we moved as quickly as we could at the request of attorneys and property owners who wanted to get this behind them. So, and a part of me says maybe we shouldn't have sent out that many at one time to have such a large response. On the other hand, we didn't want to delay anyone receiving this information, because many said they needed this information in order to settle with a potentially responsible party or otherwise get this behind them. So that was one reason why we sent it out quickly as we had it, but it was quite long. This has resulted, by the way, the delay, which was from our end unavoidable. I cannot tell you the number of people I've met with who have said, yes, I received some funding months ago, but I needed the money for some reason. And for a rebuild, for life experiences, for all the things that happen, and I'm really not in a position to pay it now. And it's a very sad and difficult issue for the folks that are with those stories, as well as our folks that are meeting with them each day to talk to them about this issue. We're not in a position to set up payment schedules or whatever. We're trying to advise them of maybe some issues. We'll try to, again, make notations that go to the state that hopefully will give them some options. But by and large, again, ours is a conduit role, so we're not in a position to waive, to negotiate, to extend, or whatever. But I do think, again, we are committed to try to help them at least understand what their options are and obligations might be. Next question I get all the time is, why are state reported costs so high? The average cost per property was $115,000, which is a lot higher than if you were to clear individual properties. Property owners as well as insurance companies are balking at those costs at times. In general, they don't affect the payout from the property owner because their limits are much, much under those areas. So their limit may be $15,000 to $20,000 to $30,000. So anything above that actually won't affect their obligation. That said, why is it so high? Well, what happens is, unlike a normal house fire that may occur in a developed or urban area, when you have a wildfire that is this massive, what you've done now is you've required the overflow of any resources locally. So now we had to bring in 300 workers. We had to actually feed them, house them, had to train them, had to end up with different activities for exporting the waste to various locations. We would have completely, well, first of all, the local landfill couldn't take much of the waste that was generated here, not just because of volume, but because of type. So by the time you do all of those activities, do required health and safety training, every employee had to have certain hazardous materials training because 20% of the waste had either asbestos or heavy metals involved. We ended up with air sampling required. We ended up with different sampling and trucking costs that you wouldn't see with a normal cleanup. So any disaster, be it a flood, earthquake, or something like this, is quite costly. They should try to economize wherever possible, but it is by its nature going to be much, much more expensive than a routine cleanup. It is interesting, a couple of the insurance adjusters we've dealt with have said, nope, we'll only pay like $1,500 for this cleanup because that's what we'd normally pay for people to haul off 3 tons of waste. And we'll say, well, you do what you interpret because that will be the only duplication of benefit. But it makes it very difficult to figure out what the actual liability could have or should have been. But again, we're trying to avoid getting into the weeds on that. And again, I'm just giving that to you as an example of each of these things we're dealing with every day. We've also had issues that trying to figure out what the liability is. Why can't we come up with a number? Well, we've ended up that a lot of the folks, because they either don't have policy information or understand it, have been either reluctant or otherwise have been unable to provide us with their policy information. We've had a number of the attorneys have been advising people not to sign anything or provide us with any information. And we've had tremendous variance in insurance policy, insurance underwriter, and even the same insurance company's policies on how they're paying. So the work that Tetra Tech is doing, again, is extremely complex. We're trying to simplify it as possible and telling them all we need from you is a simple statement that says this is full and final payment for the debris-specific reimbursement provided for this property, and we're done. And we're hoping to be able to get that on as many as possible and move forward and try to keep this from being too complicated. Next steps are we're expecting to close this out in the coming weeks. I'm suspecting probably another 6 to 8 weeks at max. We will have hit the 2-year anniversary as kind of one of the landmarks we're looking at right now. We're going to try to help people as often as we can. I've asked Tetra Tech with this latest mailing that will be occurring this week to have at least one more additional person on site so we're available to meet with folks. Jeremy Denbo, if any of you have met Jeremy, has, I think, done a tremendous job. He's been working about 10-hour days, has done some nights and weekends as it related to the mailing times. We did bring in an additional person from Tetra Tech, and they've got phone people available as well. But we're going to, again, be available to try to assist that no one pays more than they are obligated to pay under this program, and that we'll try to assist them in determining what, if any, liability they may have. With that, if you would have any questions, issues, or concerns, I'm prepared to try to address them.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knight. I've appreciated working with you over these last many months on this. This is a project I obviously have mixed emotions on. I wish we were never in this situation. I wish the fire never happened. But, I think that I hope that people are understanding that it's in their best interest to try to work with us at the county before they go into the black hole of the state. So while I still continue to believe this is the state's responsibility, because we were tasked with this, we were able to provide a service to our community. And I think we might need to start billing back some of my time to Tetra Tech with the amount of phone calls that I get to field too. But we've been consistent about the message and trying to help people out. And I commend you and your team for doing that. And hopefully this last mailer will help clean up. And I think that when our last mailer, we were all so close to this for so long that it made sense to all of us. But perhaps, for someone who hadn't seen anything in 6 months, similar mailing it out to them, caught them off guard. So I think this next mailing should help clarify things, and I'm continuing to encourage, and I hope everybody else will continue to encourage their neighbors and friends who haven't worked with our county on this to work with us now, because it's just going to go into a black hole, the state, and we don't know what happens. We can't help them once it goes there. But thank you.
Further questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Public comment on this issue? I'm sorry, do we have another presenter from staff? Sharon, would you like to present? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Sharon Torrance, Public Information Officer, Butte Fire Recovery. I've been working closely with Mel and also with environmental management on the letter that went out. A lot of concern from the public, a lot of misunderstanding. We worked on a question, most frequently asked questions, that was posted both on the Facebook page and on the county website. I also sent it out with a press release explaining what the letter was actually about, trying to calm some of the concerns from the public. I was contacted by Channel 40, Fox 40. Mel had already gone home, unfortunately, and they wanted a talking head instead of just something, a comment from one of us. So they came to my house on my day off and did an interview for Fox 40. I think it turned out okay. And we've had a lot of press requests and inquiries. Capital Public Radio came and did an interview. I think that we've handled a lot of this, a lot of the concerns. This second letter that's going to go out, I put together a draft press release for County Administrative Officer to look at and mic you before it goes out, to reaffirm that this was just a letter asking for insurance information, that people did not have to pay anything out of pocket, and just a really brief explanation of what the coming letter was. I've also been working with Calaveras Recovers for the last 2 years. They've done an incredible job, attended their meeting on Monday, and you're going to get a report about all the wonderful things that they've accomplished. And I've been working with Public Works closely on the burnt tree removal and the completion of Phase 1.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions of Sharon Torrance?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torrance. Excuse me, Nikki, is there any more staff presenter on this issue?
Staff always trumps, so I gotta sit back down.
Well, you can get them back, Nikki, I know.
Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. The hazard tree program, the first phase of it is completed. There is some remaining work. The management site in Wallace is done chipping, and all of the debris has been off-hauled. So we are cleaning up, stabilizing the property, and then the contractor will demobilize. We expect that to happen sometime next week. Remaining work on this first phase, of course, is monitoring and reporting for debris and environmental, and then also insurance recovery, which will tear off of the program that Mel discussed, because again, our contractor, our program management contractor is required to go through the process of insurance recovery for what would be considered brush and trees outside of a home if they happen to line up on private property adjacent to county-maintained roadways and they had insurance. The county would attempt to identify that and recover portion is available. Okay. When we put together the hazard tree removal program, FEMA required that we do the duplication of benefits, which is the same type of outreach that Mel discussed. And it will be for whatever increment private property's insurance had if it was private property on which we cut trees adjacent to county roads. And they generally come under a different category of insurance or a different rider of insurance. And we don't expect it to be anywhere near as A, extensive, or B, as painful, because we think we're learning.
Do we sign a contract like we did with the homes for that? With the right of entry?
The right of
that we said
entry,
we'd do that
requested
we would
a-
be responsible for tracking this down again?
Yes, that was in the right of entry that we sent out. Okay. Phase 2, which is the trees that have died after initial assessments along county right-of-way and on those properties for which we received right of entries. That request went into FEMA in the middle of June, and we are waiting response from them that they are indeed in the program. It will require another look at from an environmental perspective before we can begin and remobilize to remove those as well. The Public Works has produced and is currently circulating an RFP for a project management consultant for disaster recovery. Pretty aggressive, large package. So that is currently in circulation with county departments. Any questions on that?
The PMC that you're hiring for disaster recovery, roads will come under their purview?
Road, yes.
So what's going to be under, what do we define disaster recovery as at this point?
All federal and state declared disasters within the county.
All federal, and so so roads are now going to be, so the same project manager consultant will be overseeing trees and roads?
There won't be any trees left.
Blagan Road and Butte Fire Road?
So it would be storm and fire.
Will the federal government, is the federal government okay with this umbrella?
We believe that
they usually take them as distinct events.
They're all distinctive. A, they're distinctive programs. B, they're distinctive projects within each program, or distinctive grants that the county has received.
Will the fact that we are coming up on the 2-year deadline for the Butte Fire, that we need to get working on this, is the project, are we going to have a harder time getting a project PMC on board now that we're adding in all this other stuff? I mean, those happen, a lot of those disasters happened in 2017. We've got a window that's closing, and I don't want anything jamming this thing up.
We have produced a request for extension that's gone in to
Right,
Cal
I've
OES
seen
to be
that.
processed. I don't anticipate there being any difference in terms of disaster recovery for what we're asking the PMC to put together.
We're mixing up a lot of things into this salad. I'm just nervous. We just saw, we just had up a different item. I'm just really nervous that by going with this big Uber PMC, we're not going to get the roads done.
I think that the roads are the first priority, the first item of work, and then we'll move on to the other programs. But it's a large recovery. Without additional help and without additional expertise, we're going to continue to not perform.
No, we've discussed this since January.
Yeah.
That getting a PMC on board is the way to go. And in June 27th, we were going to have this conversation at this time. You're going to tell me how we were going to get there. And now I'm here and we've got this much bigger thing, and I'm worried that we're going to lose track of the first item.
I was less concerned about that when we put this together. I was much more concerned about requirements for discrete tracking so that we didn't have an overlap. My concern would be if we go out for multiple contracts, we're managing multiple contractors for this work. And so that, again, takes more staff time and more oversight. My thinking at the time was if I could get one contractor to respond, they'll have multiple branches. Each branch will be doing a different program. we are only managing a single point of contact to move this ahead.
We're 31 days from the start of the fire, 2-year anniversary. Are we going to be able to start this work in any form that will meet FEMA's recovery? I mean, I don't want to bet on them giving us an extension this close. We need to have a plan to get something going in case they don't.
As I mentioned before, we can go out and we could do force account work, which is with our own forces, which we've been doing all along. So I believe that we have been pursuing repair and recovery for the last 2 years. The project worksheet for roads recovery on the public assistance side of the program is a single project worksheet that says repair the roads. These are your roads, repair them. So I think we have been addressing that all along.
Mr. Litz, you are the OES manager now. Do you concur with this?
Yes, I have had a discussion with Public Works in terms of what is our plan B, along the lines of this is critical. We need to make sure we have shovels on the ground, so to speak, should an extension not be granted. The forced account work is really the next best option, that plan B. It's not the best option, but it does get project rolling to make sure we are still eligible. For clarification, also on our deadline, I've been in contact with the regional administrator for Cal OES, who's helping champion this effort forward on getting this extension. The date is actually September 21st is when our
That's when the declaration was.
yes, that's when our window, so to speak, would close without an extension. And so the feeling from Cal OES, although again, I never take a state promise until I actually see it in writing, is that they feel that they will grant the extension because they are the first. As long as it's before the 21st of September, it's still within Cal OES's purview to grant that extension. So I feel confident that based on the discussions we've had, that's the direction Cal OES is going. If I feel at any time, and I'm monitoring this daily, that changes, then I would be bringing back to this board urgency action in terms of who we need to talk to, both from the FEMA side and the Cal OES side, to try and make our case on why we need the extension and what actions we're working to take. Clearly, given the magnitude of the construction operations, this is a high priority for my office and a high priority for Public Works. I have continued to stress that this needs to be on the forefront of our radar.
We spoke, last time we spoke on the 27th, I asked you about a dig once policy. And I wanted to know if you had made any progress working with the planning on such a policy.
Have not pursued it to date.
Would you please pursue it?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. We also had the discussion at the 27th about our ability, FEMA, we were supposed to recover our roads to the status they were before the fire, and that status in many ways was substandard to what our current building codes are for roads. How have those conversations gone with FEMA?
They continue to focus on recovery to the condition that they were prior to the fire.
And what do they say when we say what those were roads we can't build today? Or we wouldn't ask our citizens to build, or our county to build.
Their response is that they are an agency here to help us recover to that point.
But we're not going to rebuild a road that's not to our code and standards, right?
It's,
I mean, if I built a house and you required me to have a Class C or better road built, I would have to build it to your standard. Now, if we've got a road that, you know, is subpar C and it's got to get up to that level, we're not going to build a bad road, right?
not under that circumstance. Under this circumstance, they have the checkbook. They have the rules.
But we issue the building permit. We issue the permits for them to do the construction, right?
We do the construction. We're responsible for executing the construction ourselves.
But I mean, we we'd go to the same standard that we would ask anybody else to do.
If I,
Am I not making sense?
if I might add into this piece, this is a chronic issue with, I would say, federal reimbursement, particularly on these types of projects. Basically, what FEMA says is they will restore, it's like an insurance policy, they will restore it to the condition that it was prior to the incident, where in fact we had a fairly lengthy call on the permanent work for Blagan Road yesterday with our FEMA rep for just this issue. Based on what they're willing to approve in the scope of work, it would return it to where it was before. Well, we know that at some point in the future, it's going to flood over again and potentially wash that bridge out. FEMA's been made aware of that, but their response continues to be, this is what we're willing to basically provide reimbursement for. What we are looking at is some alternative options through FEMA that would basically give us the capped amount to return it to its previous state, and then look at the ability of us to make improvements on top of that. And I think it's a beneficial thing in some areas, where if we are able to identify additional funds through another means, an example could potentially be what comes through with SB1 and road funds, or through other means, that we could make improvements to the project but still get the base reimbursement to basically return it to the state that it should have been in, but instead we're going to enhance it. We're still working through some of the mechanics of that, because it is a different practice that we haven't done locally, but I think is a very smart practice for that very reason. It's ridiculous to assume that we would want to return something that we already know has a flaw in it. Instead, we want it to last 50 years, not 10 years. So the goal has been to try and find some type of a compromise position with FEMA through this process.
Because if my house burnt down and it had old wiring, you would not let me rebuild it with old wiring. You would make me come to code. And we should hold ourselves to the same standards. So when we do this update next month, we will have a project management consultant on board. You will have to have discussions with the Dig Once policy, and we will have resolved whether it's a betterment or just bringing it to code issue with OES, as well as the extension. I'm getting nervous, guys. We're at the deadline. Does that sound good to you, Mr. Krovitz?
We'll work on all of those.
Thank you.
Mike? Supervisor Mills, after you, I have a comment.
Why don't you go ahead and make your comments, sir?
Supervisor Garamendi, that's some great information as far as what we need to do. I'd like to include the options of financing those improvements if the county has to, and where our funding sources could or may come from if the FEMA program is failing to reimburse us for all of our costs. And I know that's putting a lot of information on you folks, but we can talk about doing the work, but how are we going to pay for it if FEMA doesn't come on board? And that's something we have to actually be aware of.
And that would, I'm glad you talked first, because that dovetails exactly what I'm concerned about is that Supervisor Garamendi and I, we had a meeting, April?
January.
Well, we had, yeah, but there was another one. But what I'm saying is this is not a new thing. My concern is this, and this probably would be to our CEO as well, is that we get this extension, or we somehow are challenged in a future extension simply because of a lack of delivery or lack of performance, is that we then have gone to a plan B. We've put in money through a force account of some type to begin these projects, and then find out that OES isn't going to fully reimburse simply because of delays that we ourselves have imposed on ourselves. So I just want that scenario out there, that extensions don't necessarily say it's okay. It's simply showing to all of the agencies that surround us that we haven't performed in the timelines that they know are what they're asking for, and we're not capable of delivering. And that is the grave concern, I think, that Supervisor Gehrman, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you share, is that we have to be able to deliver in the timelines that they're asking to have done. And extensions are a black eye in my world in terms of our ability to perform. So I don't exactly approve of a Plan B idea, because we should be able to work within the regulatory requirements of Plan A and ensure that these projects get done in the timelines that they're asking to have them done. That's simply a comment, it's not a question.
Further comment? I just want to clarify one thing. This is a county effort, not one individual's effort or one department's effort. I've probably been the most experienced in this crisis, being on the board the longest. I think it's only fair that we identify those responsible for the performance, but we don't point a finger, because that's not going to correct this situation. We need to work together to get this thing done. Granted, there are different opinions on who did what, when, where, but living in the past ain't going to fix the future. So let's get together and get this project done, all of us. Thank you, Mr. Crowis.
Anything else? Thank you.
Further comments? Public comment is open.
I didn't hear public comment,
Oh,
I'm
Nikki
sorry.
was going to present?
Oh,
Guess what, Nikki? You're a presenter.
I feel like I'm at work. I could just stay here all day. Okay. So thank you. I always have to have a sense of humor. It's important in this world we're living in, right? So I'm here on behalf of Calaveras Recovers today just to give you a brief update on our progress to this point, or actually to this date. And then I want to tell you that you're going to have a further in-depth summary at the end of September, probably closer to the beginning of September, that we will furnish to this board and most importantly to our community at large. So as of today, Calaveras Recovers has completed 7 homes for the Butte Fire victims. We have 3 homes that are still currently in the process of being built, and there is a delay in that, and I will tell you the reason for that is because of our amazing partners. There are 2 organizations that continue to come up here and work on those 3 builds, and they typically are available to do that during the weekend hours because they are working individuals and volunteers like the rest of us that are committed to Calaveras Recovers. And those organizations are the Ripon Area World Renew Institution and our other partner, the Church of Nazarene from Sutter Creek. They are solely responsible for the continuance of those 3 builds that are not finalized as of yet. We also need to let you know, and you probably know this, but just in case you do not, that several months back we actually closed our operations in Mountain Ranch. We had a mobile trailer, if you remember. I know Jack spent time up there periodically, and I'm not sure that everybody had a chance to go in and meet the team, but that was, for all intents and purposes, our mobile office, and that's where the clients could come and meet with case management and learn about the resources available for Calaveras Recovers in continuance with our partners such as the Red Cross. We have moved that trailer, we have given that trailer back, we were renting that trailer, and we now have our practice offices here in San Andreas in conjunction with the Red Cross. So where the Red Cross office is off of Pull Station Road, their project manager, we share that project manager with Red Cross. That's where our location is for Calaveras Recovers in San Andreas on Pull Station Road. We have finalized distributing all of our houses in a box. We have 3 left that we're going to be giving out momentarily, and we could not have done that without the help of our volunteer team, and that is led by Kevin Darr and 2 outstanding volunteers from Mountain Ranch, Tom and Becky Hall. We are committed to this cause. And what I mean for that is that our board took a unanimous vote last week during our executive team meeting, and we all agreed in a unanimous decision that Calaveras Recovers will stay intact. We will stay a viable board. We will comply with all the IRS regulations to demonstrate that we are actively pursuing the parameters of the regulations for a nonprofit, and we will stay intact. We are doing this because we committed to you, this board, and to our community in October of 2015 that we needed to restore these people. And we feel that we have done a lot of that, but we have not done that as a board. We have done that as a community and beyond. And so, God forbid, if there is another disaster, But if there will be one, this board will be ready to act upon that at any time, our board, Calaveras Recovers. So on behalf of Calaveras Recovers, once again, we want to thank the Board of Supervisors. We want to thank the county team. Behind me are amazing people that punch no time clock. They are committed to making Calaveras whole. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Any further staff presentation? Now we'll have public comment. Mr. Wilson.
Gentlemen, I was in the Santa Cruz Mountains during Loma Prieta. Nimitz Freeway was devastated. Bay Bridge was devastated. People were killed. People were killed in our fire. I was on site in Mexico City after the earthquake down there years ago. You couldn't go from one end of that city without walking over debris. Nimitz Freeway was rebuilt. The levees in New Orleans after the hurricane have been rebuilt. Were they all rebuilt to the substandards that they were before the earthquake and before the hurricane? No, they were improved. We could improve those with RIM fees on commercial grows. We could also improve those roads with taxes paid for by the commercial growers to grow in those areas. Isn't D2 the largest commercial growing area in the county? Isn't that where those roads need to be repaired and brought up to standard, not substandards? I think we need to look at all options in this dilemma that we face in our county and use those ones that work to take care of some of the corrections that the federal government may not reimburse us for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Devil Springs. I'd just like to share with you all some of my anger and frustration over a resource that was overlooked in this county. After the Butte fire, the State Labor Council pledged $50,000 in assistance to the Lake County and the Butte fire victims. At that time, it was dispensed through the union, home care union. They say they made a phone call to all the fire victims to let them know. Well, their houses were burned down. How's anybody going to get a phone call about assistance when there are no phones? I hounded them for over a year until the money's no longer available. The union would not notify the members by mail, nor would the public authority. Now, after the Butte fire, I don't know what the public authority was doing. They weren't providing trainings. They weren't doing orientations. Maybe they were working for social services. But they also had the opportunity to put a mailer to all the victims in the Butte fire to let them know of this money. They're claiming, the public authority is claiming there was no money. It was a lie. Well, I've talked to the convalescent care, and they have several people who availed themselves of that money. There was money available, but the home care members impacted by the Butte fire were never notified. Consequently, no money was given to anybody in home care that lost their home or any of their belongings or their tools or their cars of the Butte fire. That's $50,000 that could have been made available to people that were burned out in increments up to $7,000 each. Just gone. No assistance, no availability, and nobody was able to benefit from that money. That money rolled over and it went to Lake County. Anyway, just another resource that's been ignored or, you know, in the bucket. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Mike Falvey, Mountain Ranch. This is an FYI. I was one of the folks that received the letters from the county, and I filed them, as I got them, in the appropriate basket. as I got them, because I'm a hands-on landowner, and I watched the cleanup, and I'll tell you, they did a great job on the cleanup. They've done a great job on the hazardous tree removals on my right-of-way. But for instance, this is a nationwide problem. This isn't just a county-wide problem. We have these people that hunt that work, that's their profession. They follow the disaster. They've learned how to play the game. They know how to charge for their services. My trees, for instance, I was right there when they were dropping them, and there was a 6-man crew. It took about a day and a half to drop the trees. If I was going to hire someone, I'd go find a guy that could do the work of those 6 guys. He could do it, and I'm not exaggerating, in probably about 5 hours. My cleanup, so there's a pretty significant difference in cost right there. My cleanup was 2 days, probably a half a dozen guys and a couple pieces of equipment. My bill was 16 times as much as what my insurance reimbursed me for. 16 times. When I got my final letter, which to me was almost threatening, I came down and I paid my money that my insurance had given me. I paid that money back to the county. There were people that I know that got $500,000 bills. And it was kind of disconcerting to get this bill in the mail saying, if you don't pay this, you're going to the state. So I knew what the language meant, and I didn't have a problem paying duplicate benefits. I just went down and wrote a check. My point is, this is unless, God forbid, this ever happens again in Calaveras County, but if I was in your position, I'd be questioning these cleanup crews. Where are you coming up with these numbers? I realize Mr. Knight said the training, the safety, et cetera, the housing, it's all factored in. But to charge me 16 times more than my insurance company gave me for cleanup, or to spend 6 times, let's call it 12, 80 hours of manpower versus what should take 4. I would, as a county, I'd be questioning these figures I get from FEMA and et cetera, the cleanup crews. That's just FYI. It's exorbitant charges, and I realize it's an industry, and they're taking advantage of the situations.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any further discussion by board? This is an informational item.
If I might, Mr. Chair. Mike, there's Eisenhower coined the term military-industrial complex. I think we're going to form a new one called the disaster industrial complex.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's no action required on this agenda item. We're going to break for lunch right now. We'll return at 1:30. Board will go into closed session at 11:35. 5-minute break.